Hi. All right, here is the unit review for Unit 1. And I've started this video probably 40 times and turned it off every time. So I'm just going through this time. All right, here we go. The very first objective asks you to define some terms. That's what I'm going to do. All right, morality is the first definition that we learned in this class. Morality is an objective and rational code of conduct that prevents harm and promotes good in the world. So basically, the study of morality is the science of what one ought to do in order to promote good and prevent harm to the self and to others. Magisterium. Magisterium is the teaching authority of the church. The magisterium is the teaching authority of the church. So it's the Pope and the bishops and the cardinals that come together and teach the morality of the church. They are the teaching morality. They are the teaching authority of the church. I'm not stopping this time. Okay, emotivism. Emotivism is simply the view that morality is based on our emotions or how we feel about certain acts. So if we do an act and we feel guilty about it, it would be wrong for us to do. But if we didn't feel guilty about it, then it would not be wrong. This is part of the idea of moral relativism, the idea that different things are wrong for different people depending on how they feel about them. The problem is some people can do some very, very evil and harmful and awful things without feeling guilty about it. Also, sometimes we do things that are not a matter of conscience that make us feel guilty. So, for example, if someone asks us to do a favor that we're not able to do for them and we have to say no, we might feel really guilty about that, but it's not a matter of conscience. All right. On the other hand, there might be a habitual harm that we've caused over and over and over again that we've done so often that it no longer makes us feel guilty. And just because we don't feel guilty does not mean that it's a matter of conscience. So that's the problem with emotivism. It's totally based on feelings. It would also mean that morality would be different for different people based on how they felt about a particular action. All right? Sin. Sin is basically knowingly and freely causing harm or bringing harm into the world. Right? So there's a lot of times when we bring harm into the world, but when we knowingly bring harm into the world or freely bring harm into the world or habitually bring harm into the world, that is sin. And virtue is the opposite of sin, because virtue is knowingly and freely bringing goodness into the world, or it's habitual goodness, which is the opposite of sin. All right? Free will. Free will is our greatest gift from God. It's the ability to choose our own behavior. It's the ability to have rational thought, to consult our conscience, and be able to choose what behavior, how we're going to act. Free will is our greatest gift, but it also means that we are ultimately responsible for any harm that we bring into the world, or any goodness that we bring into the world. We are ultimately responsible for that. Culpability. Culpability is the measure of our responsibility. It's the measure of our guilt for the actions that we commit. All right? Culpability is less objective than morality, because culpability takes into account what were your motives, how much did you know about what you were doing, what did you intend to have happen? Did you have an erroneous conscience? All those kinds of things play into the actual level of guilt that you have for a particular action. So culpability is basically a measure of the amount of personal guilt that you have for an action that's been committed. All right. The one thing you don't want to say when you're talking about culpability is tied into how guilty you feel, because culpability is not a measure of how guilty you feel. It's a measure of how guilty you actually are for a particular act. Integrity. Integrity is having an uncompromising adherence to a particular set of values. All right. It's tied into your character. So a person who has integrity acts in the same way regardless of the situation that they are in, or regardless of who's watching, regardless of whose presence they are in. So someone who has integrity and is honest would always act in honesty no matter what situation they were in, no matter who was watching. They would act with the same level of honesty in all situations, and that is the definition of integrity.